Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast series for financial advisors. Today's episode is From the Ground Up, How to Create a $2.4 billion content growth engine. It's a conversation with James Conole, the founder of Root Financial. I'm Louis Diamond, and this is the Diamond Podcast for Financial Advisors.
At Diamond Consultants, we help elite advisors identify the right environment for their businesses to thrive, whether that's at a wirehouse, boutique, or independent firm. With nearly 3 decades of experience, we've guided thousands of advisors and represented more than $250 billion in assets transitioned. And each year, 1 in 4 advisors managing $1 billion or more who change firms are our clients. Our process is education-driven and based on building relationships, starting as your strategic partner well before you're even thinking of a move. To schedule a confidential conversation, call us at 908-879-1002. Wondering why advisors change firms and where they're headed? Are transition deals going up or down? Those very questions and more inspired us to create our annual Advisor Transition Report. It's the award-winning, data-driven resource designed for advisors that connects the dots between the motivations around movement and the firm's appetite for top talent. Arm yourself with the knowledge you need to make smart decisions. Download your copy at diamond-consultants.com/transition report.
There's a pretty well-defined way most advisory firms get built. It usually starts with a book of business, grows through referrals and relationships, and over time, expands by adding other advisors who follow a similar path. It's a model that works, and one that's been reinforced for decades. But it's not the only way to do it. James Conole took a different route, starting from the ground up. He's the founder of Root Financial, a firm that's grown to over $2.4 billion in assets in just 8 years. And what makes that growth interesting isn't just a number, it's how it happened. He didn't start with a book, and he didn't build a business through traditional prospecting or by recruiting advisors with existing books of business. Instead, the firm grew out of something else: content, inbound demand, and a very deliberate approach to building a team that could support it. That's what we spend time unpacking in this conversation. We dive into what actually made content, and in this case, YouTube videos, work as a client acquisition engine, how James thinks about growth as a balance between demand and capacity, not just a single metric, and how a virtual firm maintains consistency and culture as it scales. But the reason I wanted to have him on is a step back from all of that. If we remove the traditional playbook, what's actually left? Where are the few things that really determine whether a firm can grow in a way that's sustainable? That's what this conversation gets into. So let's get to it. James, thanks for coming today and joining us. I've been very excited to speak with you.
Thank you for having me, Louis. Excited for it.
Awesome. Let's jump in. Let's start with your background and what led you into the wealth management world to begin with.
I joined the wealth management world right out of college. I studied finance in undergrad and business school and loved numbers and the kind of critical thinking component of what goes in what in my mind was finance, which was just crunching numbers. And that's all I really knew about it. But I did not know what avenue of that I would pursue post-college, whether that was banking or corporate finance, or really didn't know anything. Just numbers is what I liked. And I was fortunate enough to have a couple of internships, one with a big wirehouse, and I really did not enjoy that internship. And then I had another internship with an independent RIA, more local to the San Diego area where I was from, and really enjoyed that experience. Through that internship, which was the year before graduating business school, started doing some part-time work my final year in business school, and then just launched right into it right after graduating. So that was my step into it. Not really a big master plan of any sort from a young age, although there's, I think, some maybe experiences that influenced that. But it was a fortunately timed internship that led to my first job out of college.
Perfect. Hey, everyone's story is unique. You don't have to have some crazy light bulb moment or a super unique different path, because clearly the path you took has served you well. What belief about building a business or even just our industry in general have you changed your mind over time? Maybe since you had that internship or just anything over the last number of years that you've really changed your thinking on?
I know when I joined, I saw what I thought a traditional advisor was supposed to be or what successful advisors were supposed to be. And I think a lot of that was you were super active in the Chamber of Commerce, or you were super active in these community things, or you were really good at just getting out there and developing business and being that rainmaker. That totally works. That's fine. I just changed my mind about, is that the way that I want to do it? Yeah, that I personally don't want to do it that way. And I've come to find that I think there's more effective ways, and maybe most importantly, ways that better align with the way I enjoy working. So I think that traditional mold of what the financial advisor is supposed to look like and what they're supposed to do to grow their business and how they're supposed to serve clients and what that looks like looks totally different now than it did when I first joined the industry. And not necessarily say there's one path to do this. Maybe that's the beauty of this. You can do it however you want. But I think I've found the path that works for what I enjoy doing.
I actually love that because to me too, that is like the caricature of a financial advisor is they're at the country club pitching, they're networking, they're out in the community. That perception is what probably drives or steers a lot of people away from this great industry. They think the only way to be an advisor is to be that rainmaker, be that networker. But you've proven, and we'll spend a lot of time in this interview talking about different ways to grow a business, scale a business, et cetera, but do it in a way that's extremely authentic to you. I think that's absolutely spot on. And yeah, that might be the way for a lot of people, for some people, but it doesn't have to be the only way. For those who are less familiar with your firm, Root Financial, can you give us a quick snapshot as far as the size of the firm, types of clients you work with, any niches that you're a part of, really anything, just to give us a little bit of foundation as we go through the interview?
Yeah, happy to. So today, Root Financial, we have 70 plus team members. We manage about $2.4 billion for our clients. We're fully virtual and distributed across the country. So we have advisors in many different states. As just mentioned, we'll get this more, but a lot of the ways that clients find us is podcasting, YouTube, other online forms of media. So it doesn't necessarily have to be what advisor is most proximate to me as much as what advisors acting most with the pain points or the things that I'm trying to solve for. We're 8.5 years old as a firm, and the types of clients we serve, not too dissimilar, I would say, from a lot of other advisors. It's that retirees, someone in the 55 to 65-year-old age bracket. We, on average, our median client size is about $2.5 million of assets that we are helping them to manage. In many cases, there's still maybe a bit more held away in 401ks that are still working, but that is a very high-level snapshot of who we serve.
First off, any firm that can manage $2.4 billion, it's impressive. But to me, what stands out even more is the firm's 8 years old. And it's not like you started the firm with $1 billion book. But my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is you essentially started Root with no book of business. You started at legitimately zero 8 years ago. Is that accurate? And if it is, what gave you the confidence to really make this type of leap?
Nothing gave me the confidence. I got fired. So the confidence, I guess, was given to me through termination papers from the previous firm. And I never wanted to start a business. It wasn't like I was, and I still don't really consider myself the entrepreneur type of start a business, sell a business, start a business, sell a business, as much as I just really love doing what I do and building this business. So it was never even a thought that I would go launch something when I was at my previous firm. I was there for 6+ years, and I thought I would be there for the rest of my career. And that quickly came to an end towards the end of 2017. It was not any type of internal confidence as much as boats are burned. Why not try this new thing and see how it goes? I was 28 at the time, no kids, not married, no mortgage. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But if it doesn't, what's the worst case scenario? I go find a job from here. There was no big grand plan to do anything. It was just fortunate in retrospect or in hindsight to realize, yeah, I got pushed out of a job I enjoyed, but I think grateful, very grateful everything happened when it did. And I was working with some clients at that previous firm. They didn't know I left because it was legitimately one day I was there, the next day I wasn't. So it was pretty much starting from zero. But I will say that there was maybe in the first 12 months of launching Root, a couple million, 3 million of A that kind of slowly came over from people reaching out on LinkedIn of, hey, what happened? We told you were gone. Where are you? Maybe 2 million to start or 3 million to start, not right up front, but within the first 12 months of launching Root from previous relationships.
Relative to over 2 billion in assets, you essentially started at zero. I mean, I think what you said, first off, thank you for being transparent and vulnerable, because I think it's such an important part of your story. Similar to what we said earlier, there's the path that everyone thinks a financial advisor has to take with being the one out there networking and rainmaking. The same thing in this industry when it comes to launching an independent business or an RIA is, for the most part, these firms are started when someone breaks away from a wirehouse or from a broker dealer or left their RIA with a book. So it's definitely not the norm that a firm starts, in my words, from pretty much zero. But things happen for a reason. One door closes, another one opens. And you're a walking example of that.
Yes. And I'm grateful for the doors that opened and most importantly, the door that closed to make it all possible.
Yeah. I mean, my guess is if you didn't have that type of event, you wouldn't have had the confidence or the ability, maybe not even the confidence, but you wouldn't have had the thinking to go and do this and take this risk. So at that point, like you said, no kids, no family, you didn't really have anything to risk. It was just like, I'm going to do this and we'll see if it works. And if it doesn't, so be it. We'll figure something else out after this.
Exactly.
I want to ask you too about, you said 70 or so folks that work at Root, but it's a geographically dispersed team. Do I take that to mean that it's a fully virtual firm, or do you have a handful of brick and mortar locations or a home office, if you will?
We have an office in Encinitas, California, which is where I am, but it's all of 900 square feet and two of us work out of there. Two, sometimes three of us work out of there. So it's not a home office by any means. It's just a place to go do work if you happen to be close to that office. We have another co-working space in Los Angeles where one advisor works. We have a co-working space in Austin, Texas. So we have those, but they're very much not the norm. There's perhaps 4 or 5 of us total out of 70 that go into any office ever. For the most part, it's everyone's working from home or from wherever they choose to work.
That's absolutely amazing. 2 follow-ups from that. The first one is during COVID, the norm was folks are working from home, wasn't a choice. Even in the year or 2 after, it was the hybrid style, or there were still plenty of firms that allowed folks to work remotely. It feels like the pendulum has shifted big time, especially in this industry, to a hybrid style or 5 days a week, 4 days a week in the office, et cetera. So you're, I think, once again, going against the grain, if you will. So I'm curious, how do you stay connected and coordinated? And a $2.4 billion and growing firm, I mean, that's a fairly complex operation, and 70 people is a lot of people. So for someone who's interested in knowing how you run a highly successful virtual firm, can you give any insights or wisdom?
The first thing I'll say is there are definite benefits to working in person, but there are also definite benefits to being virtual. The majority of the team that we have right now, we have some incredible team members. We wouldn't have them on the team if we were in person only because they're nowhere near our San Diego office. I'm not going to say that you should absolutely do one or do the other. This works really well for us and what we're doing. To the people that say you have to be in office, I would just push back and say, why? And you might have a very good reason. Like you might have a reason because you've defined exactly what in office does for you and exactly how that supports the structure that you have, supports the culture that you have. But I think in many cases, it's lazy thinking in a lot of ways. Like we're not actually defining what our culture is and what our service model is and what our advisor development program is and what all these things are. So simply by being in office, there's that happens maybe more naturally. And so that's sure, maybe, but I would push back on that. Can you do those things without being in person? Can you train? Can you develop? Can you maintain that culture? Can you do all of those things that people say that an office provides virtually? And maybe not every firm's positioned for that or structured for that, but there is sometimes this thinking that I'll just do it this way because everything else will follow. Something I don't fully agree with.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think it's totally fine to be in person if you got a good reason for that, because there's certain types of collaboration or certain types of ways of working that best support that. But for us, how do we keep that culture? I think there's a few ways. Number one, I used to think that this whole, you have a mission statement and you got a vision for where you're going, you've got core values. I always just rolled my eyes at that because I'd been part of firms where it's like, yeah, we have it. It's on our website, what it is. We don't care. We say that's our mission. Our mission is to gather assets and avoid hard conversations if we're being honest about what we're really doing here. And I think that's probably indicative of a lot of the industry. Sure, we have a mission because our marketing consultant, our branding consultant, or our outsourced marketing agency said we should do it, but no one really buys into it. And I think I really realized when it's okay, if we're going to build a team, we're not just going to build a team of average or even slightly above average performers. We're going to build a team of incredibly high performers, and incredibly high performers want to be part of something. They want to be part of building something that aligns with their values and what they care a lot about. So starting with actually having a mission, a vision, a purpose of why do we exist, core values that support that, and then ways of reinforcing those core values. Because you can't just say you have them. and then expect that to be embodied. But what are the little things that you can do to celebrate times where that shows up? How do you make sure that every single time you start a team meeting, those are exactly what you're starting with? Every single Monday morning, for example, it's the team 72 at this point. We're all on the same Zoom call, and it's our one chance to all be together for the week. We start that out with, here's our mission, here's our vision, here's our purpose. So where are we going? Here's our core values. And we'll typically have some announcements, and then we will celebrate 5 wins from the previous week where those core values showed up. Because being virtual, if you're working at Root, Lewis, you have no idea what I'm doing all day. Neither of us has any idea what everyone else is doing every day unless you happen to be in meetings with them. So you start to lose sight of all the really cool things that are happening, whether it's team wins, whether it's client wins, whatever it is. There's so many cool things happening at Root, and it's our chance to highlight those, to reinforce those, to say, look, Lewis, even if you didn't see this last week, here's some of the major wins that we had. And we don't mean wins like, hey, we gathered 50 more million in A last week. We mean like true deep wins that are aligned with the mission of what we do. And when we were smaller, we would all go around and share what that win was for the previous week. At this point, it's just not logistically feasible for everyone. But at the end of each week, everyone gets sent a little weekly reflection. And on that weekly reflection, it's this sense of, hey, what are your top 3 priorities for next week? Lewis, based upon your rocks this quarter, what are the top 3 things you want to accomplish next week? And how did you do on this week's top 3, the things that you prioritize doing? Then it's going to ask you for what's your win for the previous week. And it's so cool to see that board at the end of the week of 50 plus, 60 plus just wins being populated of things that you have no idea that they're happening. And then you can see these awesome things happening with clients, or you can see these awesome things happening with the team, or you can see so-and-so just passed the CFP, or so-and-so just got promoted and brought on their first client, and the client had these incredible things to say about their experience, or so-and-so had this, what they thought was gonna be a really hard conversation with the client, and the client was broke down in tears after because they're so grateful and happy of this thing that we did for them. So it's a pretty powerful thing when we can not just say, this is our mission, vision, purpose, but also let's reinforce those things every single time we meet. And so that's just Monday morning. And then how do we do that throughout the week on an ongoing basis? How do we make sure that as the team grows, we have kind of the Root culture, but also some subcultures of what does it mean to be on these different advisory teams, or the operations team, or the client service team, or whatever. Anytime a client comes on board, there's a Slack channel. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Selling Sunset.
Unfortunately, yeah.
That kind of trashy reality show where sometimes they sell a home, but mostly they're just gossiping. And they sell a home, and they go ring that bell, and it's fun, and they pretend to stop hating each other for a second and all cheer. Now, thankfully, we don't hate each other. Everyone really likes each other, but it's like we have a ring the bell Slack channel where a new client comes on board, and it's Lewis Diamond. Here's a little bit about him. Here's his journey. There's just a summary of what prompted Lewis to reach out to Root, what his pain points are, what we're going to do for him. And it's really cool because every day there's, on average, that bell is being rung multiple times. And it's just cool to see the momentum happening and to see the not just a growth. Like, it's cool to see on the outside, 2.4 billion. And last year it was 1.2 at this time. And then the year before that, it was 400 million at this time. And the year before that, it was what you see on the outside. But the inside is even cooler because it's real client victories, real client wins, a lot of amazing things happening with all that. So there's that. And then we do in-person stuff. We do some awesome in-person events of whether that's a full team retreat, like we just came off of a month and a half ago, where the whole team came out to Palm Springs. And there was some business stuff, but for the most part, it was just, we're just connecting and we're hanging out and we're playing games and we're doing fun stuff and we're forming that bond that we already had. We felt was really strong, but it's getting even stronger because now we're here in person. We have some continuous improvement type events through the year. We have what we call our petite retreats, where each individual advisory team will get together in person. Client service teams will get together in person. The ops team will get together in person. So it is virtual, and there's things that we intentionally do to support our culture and that maintain staying front and center while virtual. But we also do invest a lot of time and money into making sure that we can come together and do fun things as a team.
Wow. Honestly, so much to learn from what you just said. Even if a firm is in person, I love what you said around the 3 weekly goals and how it tracks to the quarterly and everyone sharing their wins. I'm going to steal some of this for myself. I hope you don't mind. I'll give you credit, of course. But honestly, from the outside looking in, it's remarkable as well. You said 400 million to 1.2 billion to 2.4 billion. I mean, that is absolutely insane. So clearly, virtual, in office, no matter what the strategy is, the results speak for themselves. And I would imagine you don't measure success based upon a growth, like you said. It's more about How much of a difference are we making? How happy is our team? I think clearly you're extremely intentional about building the culture. So thank you so much for the deep dive into part of what makes Root special. I would be remiss not to ask about that growth, though. Everyone's interested in growth, myself included. That's the kind of the name of the game in the industry. So, what's been the primary driver of that absolutely insane growth from launching with 2 million or 3 million in assets to even just the last couple of years, 400 million, 1.2 billion to 2.4 billion and beyond? What's been responsible?
So there's a few things that are responsible. I think the thing that most people see is, of course, YouTube channel, podcast, digital media type stuff of just getting the right type of attention, getting in front of the types of people that we can add a lot of value to with our services. So it's part that, but then it's also part, are we building the team that can support that level of growth? Because the growth that we've had is a fraction of what it could have been if we had hired a whole bunch more people, if we had raised a bunch of money and hired more advisors. And we're fine with that because we feel that we could have gone faster, but it would probably sacrificed the things that actually matter most to us and our ability to do what we want to do. So it's a combination of, are we building the prospect pipeline via attention, the platforms that we have online, while simultaneously, are we building out the talent pipeline? Do we have the types of people that we want to work with who are here at work to help us serve those clients on an ongoing basis? So it's not a single thing. You can have all the YouTube views and attention in the world, but if you don't have the bandwidth and capacity to serve those people, it doesn't mean anything. It's just vanity metrics. You could have an enormous team, but if you don't have the inbound prospect flow feed and to support that team, then it's just a bunch of overhead, and that's not going to work long term. So it's that balancing act of growing the prospect pipeline with also growing the talent pipeline to meet in the middle and create a beautiful service.
Makes sense. One hand feeds the other. I think that's exactly right. They're extremely interconnected. I see a lot of firms that kind of overbuild, overstaff, and then the productivity for employee is low because they're not investing in lead flow or they don't have that kind of repeatable process. And vice versa, firms that grow at breakneck pace but can't keep up with human capital. And then all of a sudden they're running more of a factory and it doesn't feel the same to the end client. So I think it's like yin and yang as far as growth. What's something you did early on in starting Root that created momentum that others or some people might underestimate?
I don't know if I can point to one single thing. I could say the obvious of starting a YouTube channel. I could say the obvious of hiring some really incredible people. And those probably are the most obvious things, but I think those are the specific actions that resulted from just continuing to look at where we are and where we're going and say, this is just a principle from the book called The One Thing. What's the one thing such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or irrelevant? What's the one thing I can do today? So that challenge or that bottleneck or that problem that will come up in the next 6 to 12 months, we don't do anything. Can we do the things today to get ahead of the inevitable X or ahead of the inevitable growth plateaus, whatever you want to call them, that you say, yeah, advisory firms face these certain challenges at these certain revenue levels. There's all kinds of studies that show those. I don't think that has to happen. I don't think that has to be the case. And I think that if you can constantly be looking ahead, like I know right now, if we didn't change a single thing, there would be some challenges that we face in 12 months with where this growth is going to take us. And so let's not wait 12 months till that is a full-fledged problem and really difficult to address. What are the things we can start doing today to get ahead of that? And I think that's been the continual mindset that's been the case for the past 5, 6, 7 years of once things start going well, don't just sit back and get happy and say, wow, look at this, we've cracked the code. Like they're not going to go well forever. Solving one thing just leads to another problem in the future. Solving the lead flow thing just presented another problem. Okay, now we need to have the bandwidth to service this. Okay, hiring people to service this presented another problem. Okay, how do we have a consistency of service? So it's not just a whole bunch of really talented people, but they all do advisory work a different way. And now we don't actually have a consistent service model. Reframe problems as opportunities and be excited to say, how can we get ahead of these and attack them now in their infancy as opposed to waiting until they become really big problems/opportunities. Try to maintain that mindset every single day to stay ahead of the curve.
Spot on. I love it. And can you repeat again?
The One Thing. I believe it's Gary Keller that wrote it. Yeah, The One Thing.
Okay. I'm going to look it up. I think anyone listening, it's a great hack to understand a little bit about how James has thought about building Root. So let's spend a bit of time, you knew this was coming, talking about your YouTube and your digital channels. When I looked the other day, your YouTube channel had over 200,000 subscribers, which is incredible. When did you first realize that YouTube could become an actual client acquisition engine? It wasn't just like something you went on to watch dumb videos of monkeys skateboarding.
Yeah, it was. And by the way, Ari Talblieb, who was our chief growth officer, also has a YouTube channel. I think he has 80,000 plus subscribers as well. There's a couple plus of us doing some stuff to lead to this. I was doing a podcast, I don't want to say early on because people are doing it much earlier, but back in 2019, I started a podcast with another advisor. Then in 2020, I launched a second podcast that was more focused on if you want to call retirees a niche, whatever, a podcast specifically geared towards retirement planning. And then one of my good friends who was working at GoPro at the time was like, why don't you just stick your iPhone in front of you while you're recording your podcast and throw that up on YouTube? That's where a lot of people are consuming their information. I think there were advisors doing YouTube at the time, but I didn't know of any. So it's like, that seems like a weird idea. If that traditional thinking, going back to how I started, if this was how advisors were supposed to work, someone would be doing it by now. Maybe advisors aren't the most forward-thinking people in the world. Maybe advisors don't have the best way of building a business that other industries do. So anyways, I listened to them. I recorded 5 videos. I posted them. Nothing happened. It was stupid. It was like, this is such a waste of time. And I quit. And then 6, 7, 8 months went by. And one of those videos that I had posted, all of a sudden I started getting emails like, hey, so-and-so subscribed to your channel. And then the next day, so-and-so commented on your video. And then so-and-so. And I legitimately had forgotten that I had done that. So I was just confused when these things were coming in. And it wasn't a huge amount of views, but I logged back in and it's, oh, this video now has 200 views. And then 1,000 views. And then 3,000 views. And so it was enough for me to see that, okay, maybe there are people that would find value in this and that could become clients of ours doing this. So I believe it was summer of 2021 or thereabouts that went back and committed to saying, okay, we're going to start doing at least a weekly YouTube show and have been doing it ever since, varying between 2 to 3 videos a week, 1 to 3 videos a week, I should say, since that time. So it's been 4.5 years of doing it, but it was that early thing. And by the way, that my friend, his name is Josh. He's now our VP of brand. So he's on board, which is fun, helping to drive a lot of what we're doing. So 4.5 years of doing YouTube. And then another, I think it's been 7 years of podcasting total. So it's taken a little bit of time.
But it's such a crazy story that you tried out YouTube, like probably a lot of people do. I know a lot of people start podcasts and then bail quickly, but you actually abandoned ship and then started to see results. And that was the light bulb that led you to really double down and commit to the strategy. It's amazing how that happens. A lot of advisors, they create content, whether it's a white paper, market commentary, short form video on LinkedIn, social media posts. Some do YouTube, maybe not a ton, but I would venture to say 90% plus of advisors who do actually create content, they don't really see meaningful results. What do you think worked differently for you that led all of your amazing content to really drive and feed the business?
It's hard to say exactly because I don't watch a lot of other advisors. And so I wish I had a better answer saying, oh, I've seen it all and here's an exact diagnosis of why it's not working. I will say I do see a lot of advisors who, and this is assuming, by the way, which is a big assumption, they're creating their own content. And that white paper is not just a thing they downloaded from whatever their outsourced marketing platform is, or that's not going to get a lot of attention. Assuming it's their own content, assuming it's video, I do see a lot of advisors making investment focused commentary. I don't know if that works. And I think that's going back to that traditional advisor mold of when they started 20, 30 plus years ago, that was their value. And they've never changed. Like what they were doing 20 years ago, they're still doing. That's just now they are doing it and recording it. Unless you've got some super unique point of view and you're really in it, like just quoting hey, stay diversified and yeah, this too shall pass. And that's not going to engage a viewer. I think people are looking for a lot of depth. You have to assume that the person who's on the other side of this video knows a thing or two about finances. I think a lot of advisors can get away being a nice person and calling a client on their birthday and that client's happy because they don't know anything about finance. And maybe you met them, and because you're a nice person, they say, great, Lewis must be a great advisor, so I'm going to stick with him. That maybe worked to grow clients. If you've developed a personal relationship, that's not going to work to get clients on the internet where people are looking for some level of depth. They're looking to see, does this person know something that I don't already know? And by the way, if I'm watching a YouTube video, it probably means I have a little bit of an interest in personal finance, probably know a thing or two. And if there's no new perspective or if there's no new depth that you have to offer, there's plenty of other videos that I can scroll to in a fraction of a second to get that depth. So I think that some of the videos I have seen is just, you can't rely on the same dog and pony show that you've been putting on for 20, 30 years and just recording it and assume that's going to convert clients or convert viewers in a meaningful way. You've got to be really intentional about, what am I trying to get across here? What's the point? How can I add value? How can I add a different perspective? What's something here that demonstrates that I have some capabilities or competency that maybe this person was unaware of before? And I don't see enough of that in certain videos. It's a little bit surface level, or to put it bluntly, kind of the same tired content they've been talking about for the past several years or so.
Assuming that the people who you're targeting, they're not rudimentary, right? Like you said, like if someone is self-selecting and finding a personal finance video or financial planning video, they're going to have some level of knowledge. So it's like basically treating them like they're smart. They know a thing or two, and then meeting them where they are. I'm curious. So if you're not talking about investments, like, hey, the market was down 10% because the US and Israel struck Iran, or whatever the example is, what's the primary type of content that you're talking about in your videos?
Yeah, it's almost always going to be planning related. And even I do talk about investments, but investments in the context of how does this fit within a plan? Whether it's, I'll do case studies sometimes. So let me walk you through a fake client, and here's how we would help them solve for how much money they could spend in retirement. Or I'll do 5 ways to optimize your Social Security benefit. Or I'll do when not to do a Roth conversion, or all you just things like that. There's plenty of cool thing about this is people can just go on YouTube and see exactly what's happening. And by the way, so much of YouTube is just people copying other people at this point. I'm not going to say do that. I try very hard not to do that, but there's people I've seen, that's the exact same script. That's the exact same format. We use it. Can't stop them. But that's just a lot of what happens on YouTube right now. It's a little bit of you can go online, you can see someone's transcript. You can just say the same thing and record yourself doing it. I would say try to make a video that is going to align with what people are going to get when they actually reach out and hire you as an advisor. So if you're using someone else's kind of voice and messaging and philosophy, and then that client comes on board and it's, Lewis, this is nothing like what you're now recommending to me, that's not a good experience. And of course, the ultimate outcome that you're looking for is bringing clients on board to serve them, doing that. But yeah, it's going to be planning focused stuff, and even lifestyle, like regret focused stuff, or some of the psychological side of retirement focused content too.
Very interesting. How do you even think of topics? I mean, we've been doing this podcast for close to 8 years, and we do one podcast a week. And self-admittedly, it's challenging to keep it fresh, to come up with new ideas and content. But to do 1 to 3 videos, said you had the podcast, there's other people within your firm that have videos as well. How do you even get into the mode of thinking of that many topics to talk about?
The first thing is I've been doing it for 7 years. And let's say I've done one a week for 7 years podcast. That doesn't mean I've had, what would that be, 350 different topics. There's only so many topics that you can talk about, but you have them in different ways. You're talking about them and how does this topic relate to that topic? You got to keep in mind that some people are just now discovering the channel today. They had no idea of what I posted before. They're not going to go back and watch 500 plus different videos. They're going to start from today. That's what I'm going to do. If I have a hobby and my hobby's, I don't know, fly fishing, and I find this really cool fly fishing channel, I might watch a couple of the videos that have already happened, but I'm more interested in what videos are to come. And so sometimes I'm just doing the same video. I'm leaning heavily on comments, like what people comment on the channel when they question. I had a place for a while where people could write in and submit their own questions. And so ask your audience, ask your clients, what are the things that clients are currently asking you? Turn that into a video. Maybe you're starting right now, you have 100 clients, reach out to them, say, hey, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. What would you love to hear more information about? Maybe you have an existing podcast and channel, put out a post, say, I want to make this as valuable as possible. What can I do? What type of content can I create to make this the most valuable channel for you? So don't be afraid to ask people what they want to hear and then make content based on that.
Well, it's super practical. Honestly, you make it sound easy, but I know it's the furthest thing from easy. It's very hard to do. I'm curious though, 200,000 and growing viewers is amazing, or subscribers, but just because I view something doesn't mean I'm a good client. Doesn't mean I'm interested in hiring a new advisor. Maybe I'm a self-directed investor, et cetera. How do you think about the viewers or subscribers versus folks that convert into clients? What's the process flow? So someone subscribes to the YouTube channel. What happens after that point? And what's their life cycle to become an actual client of Root?
To put it in context, between myself and Ari, if you look at all the podcast downloads and video views, there's probably 45, 50 million. And Root has a little over 1,000 clients, meaning you only need to capture a very small percentage. You're not going to have the ability to where we can't work. Now, some of those are, one person watched 5 videos or one person. So it's not 45 million unique people, but you're not trying to capture every single person. So think of that as a very wide net. My hope is 99.9% of the people that watch my channel get a ton of valuable content. And I know this happens. I get messages from people that are super grateful. They're not going to pay us anything. They're going to have a really great planning experience because they applied that to the work they're doing on their own, or they took it to their existing advisor and said, hey, look at this. Can we do something like this? So awesome. That helped them and they never became a client. A small percentage of those people will. So what can you do to capture attention, show them like, hey, there's value here? Can you then redirect them back to a website? Can you give them a lead magnet that gives even more value and then gets them on some type of an email campaign? Can you say, hey, by the way, if you enjoyed this video and you're looking for someone to help guide you through planning points just like this, reach out to us at Root Financial. There's a link in the description. And again, it's not a huge amount of people that a huge percentage of people that need to move forward with that to make it worthwhile. There are a lot of people on YouTube who reached out at the beginning. They were just looking for hourly work or just looking for project work. Totally fine, but that wasn't our model. So we put some screens in place just to say, hey, if you're looking for this type of thing, awesome. We're just not going to be the right fit. We have this investment minimum. It's ranged between 1 million to 3 million, depending upon how much bandwidth we had as a team. That kind of became the lever that we could pull to control for bound lead flow. So we're very upfront about that, of start with a wide net and then start to make that net filter more and more. So by the time someone is actually on our calendar, it's okay. They meet our ideal client criteria. They understand how we work, and there's probably a pretty decent chance that they move forward as a client.
It almost sounds like you've intentionally put in friction or thrown up some roadblocks, I guess, so that the funnel keeps getting more and more narrow. So you don't need to hire 1,000 people and be like a call center to sort through all these people that see a video or learn about you and want some of your time. You're being super transparent and direct about what is an ideal client, being overly transparent as well. And the hope is not that we get to talk to 50,000 people next year. It's that we're spending time with the right 500 people, the right 100 people. And that's your way of funneling down into your ideal client profile.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to say it?
Correct.
Very cool. I listened to your podcast interview with, we'll say, the godfather of our industry, Michael Kitces, at least of financial planning and of content creation. In it, you said that you moved toward what you call a one meeting close. Can you explain what that means and how that works?
Yeah, and that's something that's an ongoing optimization thing we're trying to figure out. Of a lot of clients don't need 3, 4, 5 meetings of us going through a sample plan and then saying, do you want to become a client, and then moving forward. They know they want to be a client in many cases. And so it's just shifting to a conversation. They reach out, we go over, here's what we do and what it looks like, and then they move forward from there. So it's just really condensing what does the onboarding process look like from a few meetings down to what's the right number of meetings. And for a lot of clients, it's one. We already know we want to do this. Let's just learn about it and agree to move forward from there.
Makes sense to me. I think everyone would be on board with spending less time converting clients. But I would also imagine a hypothesis I would have at least is if a lot of your lead flow is coming from folks from your various digital channels, they're going to be better educated. They're going to be like pre-sold. Like they've seen your video, they saw something. They already realize that you're credible, that you're smart, that you're trustworthy, that you're adding value. So when they come to you, your job isn't to give them the whole dog and pony show or pitch. It's more answering their specific questions and then diving a level deeper into what's going to be the experience if you work with us. So do you think if you didn't have the digital lead channels that you would need more meetings to close folks that were leads from whatever channel or capacity?
Yes.
Very cool. It's pretty clear that you built Root around hiring advisors. You said exceptional talent. My guess would be you don't need people with books of business. It's more we need great practitioners, and lead flow is taken care of essentially. So come here. You don't have to worry about prospecting and biz dev. You have to either close inbound leads and or then service clients that are clients of the firm. Can you talk a little bit more about that model? Because I mean, this industry it's all about, hey, we want people with a $100 million book and we want to acquire this and we're trying to grow through acquisition and recruiting. And my phone rings off the hook every day with firms looking for the same thing. I actually think that firms like yours that have the ability to drive lead flow, which is not easy to do, you can build a better business over time and one that's significantly more scalable, more cost controlled, et cetera, if you hire folks without books. So I'll get off my soapbox, but can you talk a little bit about why you chose that model? And do you think that'll be the model well into the future?
Yes, I think so. I think fundamentally, we're trying to build a different type of business than a lot of those firms that you are
Yep.
talking about. And clients see this all the time. They'll say, "Hey, I'm working." I'll meet someone and say, What do you do?" "Oh, I do. I'm a financial advisor." "Oh, cool. I'm thinking about working with
Yep.
XYZ firm. Are they a good firm?" And it's like, there's no good firms. It depends on, do you get Bob or do you get Sally? If you get Sally, you're good. Sally is a rock star. She's awesome. You're going to love your experience. If you get Bob, watch out. Like, he's not great at what he does. But that has nothing to do with the name of the firm. That has everything to do with what specific advisor do you happen to get paired with. And I think too many firms are building like that of, oh, this person has $100 million and this person has $200 million. And it's just about, can we build faster by bringing on assets? But you're not, in my opinion, a business. You are just a platform. You're just a name and a logo that has a whole bunch of freelancers operating within it. Maybe that's being overly diminishing what they do, but like, there's not any consistency there. It's if you go to a Starbucks if you go to a Starbucks where you are and I go to Starbucks where I am, and whoever's operating that Starbucks says, "I'm going to make coffee the way I want to make coffee." And I've got someone who makes awesome coffee. And you go to Starbucks after this today and you're like, "This coffee's disgusting. What happened?" Starbucks fails to have any meaning at that point. There's no consistency. Did you have a good experience? Well, it didn't matter if you went into a Starbucks. That's irrelevant all of a sudden. It's, did you get James's barista or Lewis's barista? And I think too many firms, that's what it is. Sure, you're big, you have a lot of assets, but what's that client experience going to be like? It totally depends, which to me means that name on the door doesn't actually mean a whole lot. We have big pocketbooks and we can acquire you and we can invest a lot of the stuff, but it doesn't actually mean anything for the end client. We're trying to build something where it means something. If you work at Root, that tells me all I need to know about how you are as an advisor. There's no B players. There's no B team at Root. It's not like this is a smaller client, whatever, throw them to it. No, everyone is excellent. And it's because we put a lot of time and effort into attracting there's really incredible advisors. And we put a lot of time and money and effort into training and developing advisors. And that has to do with the consistency of the client experience. It also just has to do with the ongoing skill development. We naturally attract advisors that are very growth minded. They're the type of people that are never satisfied saying, "Yeah, I passed my CFP. I'm good to go the rest of my career." So no, I always want to be better. I always want to learn more. I'm blown away in our Slack channel. I'm learning stuff every single week about an advisor puts in a really nuanced kind of complex question about something related to something. And like the responses that they get from other advisors of, "Hey, here's what's going on. Here's what you need to look at." It's, geez, there's so much knowledge here and everyone's making each other better that what we're building isn't just, wow, that person has assets they can bring, cool, let's hire. No, we don't care. We want someone that is going to be making the rest of the team better as they come on board because of the type of person they are, and they're hungry to learn more. They're humble, they're human, they're a person that we want to spend time with. So if we can build that way, yes, we've grown fast. It's a little slower in the short term to do it that way. But my biggest thing is growth is not a North Star. It's a rear view mirror type thing to us of, it's an indication that we've done the right things. I just want to build the type of place I don't ever want to retire from, or at least not until I'm like in my 60s or 70s. I'm 36 and I want to do this for another 30 plus years. The thing that would make me not want to do this is client experience standards, sacrificing culture just for the sake of growing a little bit fast in the short term. It would be so insanely short-sighted to do that because there's so much opportunity in front of us long term. If we stay really disciplined and focused on the things that actually matter most to us, the growth will happen. But we're not going to grow by saying, okay, we're at this certain size now. We can go sell out to some private equity firm, get a bunch of capital, use that capital to grow even faster. That works on paper and spreadsheets. But what it fails to account for is we killed the goose that lays the golden eggs in terms of now the culture sucks. Now this just turns into another sterile, faceless organization that's grown really quickly. And I'm not trying to knock it. There's some firms doing really great work out there, but there's a lot that aren't. And I think that we would be lying to ourselves if we didn't admit that it just becomes this growth engine that totally makes a spreadsheet math work. It will be worth a lot of money potentially when it flips in a few years, but it's not a great long-term enduring business that high quality team members will want to work at or clients will want to stay clients of long-term.
I completely agree. I think the ingredient or kind of the predetermining factor to even decide if someone listening can pursue that type of strategy and how the discipline is their lead flow. Because if there's no lead flow, you can't hire great people, you can't retain people, etc. So having the lead flow on lock, essentially, I know it's not, makes it sound easy, but it's not, lets you have that discipline. So I think a lot of times hire folks with books, not just for the immediate kind of pop of adrenaline that bringing someone with a book in brings, but also it's like a test that they can go out there and develop their own clients and develop their own business. And in your case, you don't need that. So instead, your screen can shift away from books of business, which is like the bloody red ocean, and have more of a blue ocean mentality of we're looking for certain people that have certain criteria, characteristics, and everything will work out if we stick to that. Let me ask you one more question. So I saw a LinkedIn post that you made recently, and it was really questioning the industry narrative around scale. You started to go down this path a little bit. And essentially, every time an aggregator or a large RIA acquires another firm, the messaging that goes out is more size leads to better technology, deeper service, better client experience. But you asked a simple question. You said, has that actually happened yet? So from where you sit, do you think the industry is confusing size with scale? And is bigger automatically better?
I think so. And by the way, with that post, like it was a legitimate question. It was, is there a firm, like this has been the message. We've heard this message every single week whenever we see a headline of another firm acquires another firm. And the message is so that we can do this. Has that happened? Has that thing that this is going to lead to, are we there? Or is it another 50 acquisitions until we get there? I'm not knocking those firms. That's a great business model. You can make a lot of money doing that. I know I wouldn't love going to work at a firm like that every day because the things that I care about maybe aren't fully being reflected there. Obviously, it's no secret, the valuation arbitrage. You buy a smaller firm at a lower valuation, they fold up and cool, you are now more valuable because of that. But did anything else actually happen? Maybe, and that was a question, but if not, it's still a fine transaction. And of course, there's gonna be a PR spend on everything, but it's not to create a better client experience. I see this all the time because we open a job posting for an advisor and we get tons of leads. And some of these people are like, why are you leaving your firm? It's, oh, I loved my firm and then we got acquired and now my firm sucks. It's not an uncommon message. Or we work with new clients and, hey, what led you to work with Root? And so we were at this firm and then they got acquired and stuff changed. And so it's not just an outside looking in thing that I'm surmising this from. I'm seeing it, talent that is leaving some of those firms and looking to go elsewhere. With clients are leaving some of those firms and looking to go elsewhere. Now, Root is a tiny little blip on the radar of the entire industry of what we have. So yes, there's some adverse selection, whatever. Like we're only seeing the people that had a bad experience. Who knows? Maybe for every one person that had a bad experience, there's 100 people that had a great experience. I doubt it, but all I see is what I see. And what I see, I'm grateful for because we get to be the benefactor of really incredible advisors that could do great work in their previous firms, but because of some of these forces that are at play, it's very difficult to do. So they either look to go start their own firm or go join a firm like Root to say, this is where I want to do my best work. And the final thing is I'm not against firms selling. I'm not against private equity. What I'm against is like, what's the actual challenge? Is if you give up majority control, obviously you're no longer calling the shots and you've got to answer to what that firm owner is looking for, which is typically a time horizon of 5, 7, 10 years, whatever, where they're needing to have certain metrics hit so that this can be flipped. That's not the North Star that I want to answer to. The second thing too is a time horizon. Like so much of what we're doing, I would say we're maybe investing a lot of time and money and energy into things that don't make sense over a 5-year time horizon, but absolutely make sense over a 20, 30-year time horizon. So you just start to skew that. And then I don't know how much actual value a lot of these private equity firms, private equity backed firms are adding beyond just a capital infusion. Maybe it's a ton and I don't see it. There's great firms that can probably do this, but I just don't see the value from where I'm sitting with what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like different strokes for different folks. There's so much opportunity, so many clients. You don't have to run the same playbook that everyone else does. Clearly what you're doing is working. And obviously it's all subject to change. But for now, I think we'll wrap here. And this has been awesome. My favorite part was hearing about how you foster culture in a virtual environment, but it's hearing the way that YouTube has driven the business, the way you think about content creation, hiring people. Like truly, you're doing things in a different and refreshing way in the best way possible. So I'm pumped. In 2-3 years, we're going to have you on and be like a $10 billion firm. So I'd love to be able to do this again.
Awesome. Thanks, Lewis.
As a financial advisor, you hold yourself to the highest standards of integrity, honesty, and credibility. You are successful because you take your professional responsibilities seriously and are dedicated to your clients. But are you living your best business life? Are your goals aligned with your firm's, or could a better option exist? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a book written with you in mind. It's a self-guided journey that walks you through the key steps that we take with our advisor clients. This strategic thought process and roadmap to professional self-discovery is designed to help you ask the right questions and think critically and objectively, whether you're considering change or not. Learn how to get your copy at diamond-consultants.com/thebook.